Hey splashers, welcome back to the channel. Splasher presents here. If this is your first time here, thanks for stopping by. On this channel I take different sewing tutorials from complex to simple ones, and trust me, my tutorials are beginner friendly. So on today's tutorial I'm going to be teaching you guys how to cut a uniform knicker, and I'll be teaching you guys how to fix your pockets in two different methods. So do well to like and share this video, hit the subscribe button, and let's dive in. So this is actually two pieces for the two parts of the front. So the first thing I want to bring out is the length. So before bringing out the length, you have to know what you use for your band. For this one, I'll be using a band of 1.5. So instead of placing the tape from that 1.5, place it from 1, because you'd be needing ½ inch to join the band to the knicker. So mark out your length. For this length I have 18. So that's not all. After that, go down from that 18 and then add the allowance you want. For this one I added 2. Sorry, it's not showing at that end, so just mark whatever you have after the 2 at every end of this fabric and then connect the lines together. So this is a school uniform knicker, so you don't have to use more stress. The full length should be divided by 2. The full length of this is 19. Dividing it by 2 is 8. So we are also going to be connecting this line all through. That is where we'll be using our flap measurement. So for the lap or for the seat tie, we have 10. So mark exactly 10 at every part, because this is a uniform knicker, it's not fitted at the down. So the same measurement you have at the down is what you have at the top. Okay, so that is it. For the hip, we'll go down for either 5 or 4, depends on the size. And then your hip measurement, you divide it by 4. Whatever you have, you place your tape at that point and mark whatever you have. Remember, at the front we hardly add allowances to the different parts, so that same hip measurement, you mark it at the waist part too. You connect these lines down to the end. So this is just for the sake of this tutorial. Make sure to use your ruler if you are a beginner. Okay, so the next thing afterwards is to divide our waist by 4. So we marking that hip, that's not all. We are going to be fixing the waist measurement at the upper part. So you're going to divide your waist by 4 and mark it from the end, this time around from the end. Mine is 5.5, but I'll be adding 2 inches afterwards. You can see that. So I marked the main 5.5, and then I'll be adding my 2 inches because I'll be needing 1 for the dart allowance, and then I just want to add 1 inch for the waist, half this part and half the other part, so that by the time I'm joining it to the back part, I have my exact waist measurement. So slant it from the last point there up to the hip. Okay, you can see this is taking shape already. Then curve the flap. For the flap, you can decide to use your armhole curve, your pattern, and then cut this out. So this is basically all we have for the front. Okay, so this front is going to be having a dart. Those are the reasons why we put the allowances. So we'll set this aside and then bring out a fabric for the back part. For this back part, it is quite different because this is longer and wider. Okay, so this is wider because usually knickers, trousers, the back part is normally wider than the front part, but this is longer because we are going to be using an elastic band at the back. For the front we have a normal band, but for the back we have an elastic band, so that is the reason why it is longer. So you place this on another fabric. Okay, I'm cutting 2 at a time because the front is 2 pieces and the back is also 2 pieces. You're going to trace this out from the side. Okay, and then your allowances, we have different methods for cutting this knicker actually. So for this particular one, I'll be using this method. So to the length, remember I said the back is longer. I'll just adjust this for you to see. For the length, the back is longer. So this is the back we are cutting actually. It is longer by 3.5. Just take note of where I'm marking 3.5. That is from the flap, the top part of the flap. You are going to align that and mark it every part of the top part and then align them together. So the next thing we want to add to the width, because this is going to be bigger. If you follow through my videos, you notice that I'm using a quite different method for this knicker, and this method is quite an easy one because it's for uniforms. You know, when you get to sew this in bulk, just focus on what I'm doing. After tracing out the main front, you add 2 inches to every part of the width of the back part of this knicker. Okay, you have to use the front part as a guide before adding the 2 inches. So make sure you add the 2 inches at the necessary parts, especially the parts at which you have markings. Okay, the down and every part, just add the 2 inches, and these 2 inches we are going to be aligning them. Take note that these 2 inches, by the time you are sewing every part of it, you'd be using half-inch allowance. So if you don't want half-inch allowance, you can use 2.5 or 3 inches to add to the width. But for uniforms, for a faster and easier job, this is better, because by the time you're sewing with half an inch and you have a bulky job, you don't have to measure again. So this is what we'll have for the front part and the back part. So I'm just going to separate the front from the back part. Someone actually requested for me to make a video on how to fix the pocket. So if you follow through this tutorial, I'm going to be teaching you the sewing on my sewing machine and how to go about fixing the pocket using 2 different methods. So if you've watched this far, it means you're enjoying this video, so give it a thumbs up. So what I just did here is creating my curve for the stomach part of this, because we don't want it to have a bulge. So I went down by 1 inch and slanted it toward the end of the first marking there. Okay, so for the pocket we can use different number of inches. For this I'm using 5 because this is a kid. Okay, so let's just make this 5.5, but you can use 5, depends on the size. So for the width at the top part, I'm going to be using 1.5, which means by the time I'm done it's going to be 1. So slant it from the waist part to where you have your 5.5. Okay, so this is what we have for the pocket. I'll be teaching you 2 methods. For the pocket now, we'll be using a length of 10 inches and a width of 5 inches. So this is because of the size of the person. This material is on a fold for the 2 pairs of pockets. So just align the lines, that is the width of 5 inches and then the length of 10 inches. Then give it a curve. You might decide to use your armhole curve or your freehand. So cut this out, and this is what we'll have for the pocket. So we are just going to open this up, right sides facing each other. So this is the 2 pieces of the pocket. Bring in the front part. Notice it's slanted because of that hip, so you place it on top of the pocket and give the pocket that slant. So for this one I totally forgot, I slanted one part of the pocket. So make sure you fold this pocket and slant both parts. You'll be seeing why in the course of this video, where I'll be showing you 2 methods on how to make this trouser. So take note, if this is a material that has back and front, make sure you make the materials right sides facing each other. So for the depth of the pocket, I'll be using 5.5. So from the point of that 5.5, we'll give it a notch of half-inch depth. Okay, we'll bring in the front part of the knicker also and give it that same 5.5 inch depth. That is the 2 parts of the front part. Okay, give it a notch of 5.5. Unfortunately my scissors was too sharp, so my notch was more than half an inch. So make sure your own notch is half an inch. Next we'll be cutting out our band, and earlier on I mentioned that I want our band to be 1.5, so I'll be adding half inch to the the length of the band. So for the width of the band, your normal waist divided by 2 is what you're going to use. Just add 1 inch because we added 1 inch to that main one while cutting. So marking 2 at all parts of this band. Now I'm going to align it and then cut it out. So that's all for your band. You can decide to add any interface of your choice. Okay, so cut this out and then we'll go to the sewing machine. So you watching this video up to this extent shows you're actually understanding this. If not, leave me a comment in the comment section below. So before going to the sewing machine, we have to notch the part at which we'll put our that. So this is the front part. Actually place the two parts together and just find the midpoint of your front part and then give it a marking, notch it. That's all for the dart. So for the dart, you might decide to do the usual normal dart, or you decide to make the dart a kind of fold in. For this one, I'll be doing a fold in of about half an inch because that's the allowance we added, something like this. Okay, so you can do any of your choice. Let's go to the sewing machine. For the sewing, we are going to start with the pocket. So if this were a material that has back and front, you are going to take note of the back and front. So let's say this part is the wrong part and then this part is the right part. If you were to sew, you are going to start sewing from the right side. Okay, see the way I bent that place in from the notch. You sew it and then you turn it over and top stitch. This is for the purpose of firmness. Okay, you don't want your pocket to start leaking, so you are going to do the same for both pockets and you are good to go. So we bring in the front part. Remember the width is 1.5 and then the length is 5.5. so I'll just going to mark it in this part, half inch there and 1.5 at the top part. Remember I over notched that half inch, so you don't want to make the same mistake. So for this pocket now, I'm just going to trim this up. Remember I asked you to fold it together to trim up. I trimmed one part, so take away one part of the pocket and leave one part. Placing it from the top, mark the half inch and slant it towards the 1 inch width at the top part. So if you are someone that don't know how to sew straight, make sure to pin this down. Take note of how I repeatedly fold in the part I will not be sewing so as not to top stitch on the wrong part. So follow the line and slant it. So we have two ways to go about this pocket. Either you iron it out or you top stitch. But mind you, when you're top stitching, top stitch to the back part of the pocket and not the main knicker itself. Okay, don't mind it if it's not aligning at the top. It's a slant, so it can't align. Take note of shifting your material so as not to top stitch on the wrong part. And then this is what we have. You are going to hold this down. You are holding the down part down first of all before the upper part. Okay, secure this. You are going to run a straight stitch first of all and then later run a zigzag stitch facing the other part. So if you don't know how to make this zigzag stitch, you can let me know in the comment section and I'll make a simple tutorial on that. So the next part is stitching the top part, but you want to stitch with caution. Okay, mark out the 1.5 inch we used for the width and then stitch it, placing that part from the 1.5 inch. So you don't want this to be more or less. Whatever you're doing for the right side, you're doing for the left part. So the front part has two pieces, so whatever you have done here, you're also going to do it for the other part of the trouser. So I'm just doing the exact same thing I did for the first pocket for the other parts, but I'll be using a different method to sew this to the pocket. So bring out your material from the front, place the pockets beneath the main fabric, mark a 1.5 inch width and then make sure the notches align both from the upper part and the top. Fold in from the 1.5 inch and then from the half inch downwards. So if you are doing this method, you have to have a weaving machine handy. You have to weave that part so as to avoid rough. So you are going to stop stitch and that's all. This method is quite faster. Make sure to adjust this. You don't want to stitch on the wrong part. So when you get to the notch at the down part, you stop there. So this is what we have. You still secure the stitches, okay, using the zigzag stitch and all that. So if you don't know how to do this, let me know. For the top part, you're also going to be stitching, top stitching using 1.5 inch like we did for the previous one. So if you notice the pocket is coming out a little bit, this is because we slanted the front part to avoid bulging at the stomach part. So you are going to trim that off. I already trimmed that off for the other part I made. So this is what the two different types of pocket looks like. So this one has something like a top stitch. So this is for the sake of the tutorial. So you want to make sure you use one method for a particular type of knicker. So the next thing we are going to be joining the two flaps, that is for the front part. we are going to be joining it using 1/2 inch. So if you can sew 1/2 inch, there's no point marking it out. So this is what it looks like after sewing the front part of the flap. So we'll do the same thing for the back part using 1/2 inch to sew the flap. So this is what it looks like. It looks wide, but by the time we put the band, it's going to be okay. So the next thing is to fix the band to the front part. Fold your band into two, notch the mid part, and the band should be at the down part, and then the knicker itself should be at the top. You're sewing with 1/2 inch and taking note of the darts. So when you're sewing, be mindful of where you have the notch for your darts. So this is the first notch for our dart. We are going to place the midpoint of that flap joining to the midpoint we notched for the band, and then fold in from the notched part for the dart. We are folding towards that part, but for the other part we fold towards the opposite side. So you're going to continue sewing using 1/2 inch for this, and then when you get to the mid part, you stop. You place the end of the knicker to the end of the band, and then check out where you have the notch part. Fold it to the other direction. This time around, not facing the first direction we used, but rather facing the opposite direction, and sew this out using 1/2 inch. So I'd advise you use an interface for the band. So by the time you are done, this method is actually much easier, sewing the band from the front. So when you want to sew the band for the front, just fold it this way and then fold with 1/2 inch, because we actually want this band to be 1.5 inches by the time we are done. So fold using 1/2 inch and then sew. Just sew at the top and make sure what you're sewing is covering the sewing line you made before. And then after doing that, the next thing is attaching the back part to the front part. So while attaching it, you're attaching it from the side. So you're attaching the side of the back to the side of the front. So just make sure it aligns from the down part. So whatever extras you're having is what you're folding toward the top part. So sew using 1/2 inch. Remember I said that. So when you're close to the pocket, make sure to shift the pocket and then top stitch at that part we notched from the pocket part. Stop when you're close to the band, because we are going to be folding it for the elastic. So first of all, fold in first and then use the band of the front as a guide. Where that line is, that is where you're going to do the second folding. Just watch the way I'm doing the folding. The method we're using for the other part of the side is quite different, because we are not left-handed. So we have to start aligning it from the down to the top and then fold it in the same way we did the other part. This time around, we are sewing from the top part down to the end. So you have to make sure the down part rhymes. This is what we'll have. Turning it over, this is what we also have. Okay, so by the time we attach our elastic band, if you notice, this is looking quite big, so the elastic band is going to draw this together to harmonize it with the front part. So we have two options on how to go about with this down part. For the first option we have is harmonizing from the flap part, the joining, make sure they are equal, and then sew using 1/2 inch before folding it. That is a knicker type. Then for the other method we have is measuring whatever we have and then folding the rest. So for this one, I have an extra of 1.5, so I'm just going to notch 1.5. But first of all, I have to harmonize it, so I'm notching all 4 pieces at once. I'm notching that 1.5 at once. So after notching it now, this will be easier to fold, so I'll fold each part of it using 1.5 inches. So I'll do that for the other leg too, after which I'm going to be placing the flap parts from the middle part together and then sewing with 1/2 inch from the top. Remember I mentioned that. So if you don't want 1/2 inch, you can add it from your cutting. Do well to cross check your measurements before sewing. So this is what we'll have after sewing it. The next is fixing our elastic band. Now, to know the amount of elastic you'd be using, place your elastic at the beginning of the front part to the end of the front part. So whatever you have, don't stretch it. Whatever you have, you subtract 1 inch from it and then use it. So just place it the way I'm doing and make sure you sew using half an inch. Place it on that same half-inch line you used in joining both sides together. So after doing that, you're going to join it to the other part. Make sure you don't twist it. Just place it using the same half an inch and then doing the same stitch. So we are just going to turn both ends inside. So after turning them inside, just make sure you sew following the existing line of the band of the front. Make sure to fold in properly and then do your stitches till the end. Make sure to secure them. And that's basically all you need to know about making a short or a knicker. So you can actually manipulate your way out if you want this to be fitted or bigger. So you can actually manipulate your way out of this with this tutorial. So this is actually beautiful. Thanks for splashing. Do well to subscribe, share, like, do all you can. Until next time, keep splashing, guys.